This is stanza 28. Back to the poem. I sat alone when that ancient one came to me, Odin of the Aesir, and he looked into my eye. What do you seek from me, Odin? Why do you seek me, Odin? Odin, I know where you hid your eye, in the famous waters of the Well of Mimir. But Mimir can drink every morning from those waters where your own eye drowns. Have you learned enough yet, All-Father?
Well, there's a lot to unpack here. So this stanza refers to the story of Odin sacrificing his eye in the Well of Mimir. And Mimir, there's a few ways to translate the word. And Mimir is a being and was a god himself. And actually, in some stories, they have the Vanir beheading Mimir, and then Odin keeping his head to talk to, as counsel. Mimir, the word means sort of remembering or wise one, and so the story goes that Odin wanted some wisdom from Mimir. Mimir said, "Okay, then give me your eye and put it in the well." And so Odin plucked out his own eye and put it in the well, which, there's a sacrifice right there. And the idea behind it, the significance of it is that, well, one, we shouldn't ignore the physicality of it. Like, he sacrificed an eye, which is, that's a very extreme way to, or an extreme price to pay for knowledge. And then sort of in the same way, but on a more archetypal level, taking that eye and putting it in this well, and as we heard about last episode with Urd's well, and there are other wells, including Mimir's well, they're portals to the underworld and to chaos. And with Odin putting his eye in this well, it meant that he would no longer have both of his eyes on the world around him. He would now always be delving into the darkness and the chaos, and having that along with his normal sight. And it's sort of intense, I would say, partially intense self-awareness. He's always looking inward. That is part of what it is. One eye looking inward, one eye looking outward. And it shows, we hear the chorus, the refrain, "Have you learned enough yet, All-Father?" Well, he's literally given one eye over to this sort of darker knowledge. And so his answer throughout the poem is, "No, I'm going to learn more." Well, of course, because he actually has no choice. He's given his eye up to do it. So yeah. There's nothing else for him to do other than have this constant exposure to sort of the underworld and chaos.
Yeah, and just to add to that a bit more, I'll go into a bit more of the cosmology here. We could have covered some of these details earlier on when Yggdrasil was being introduced in the first place, when we started talking about the fates, the Norns, but I think, and we made this decision last time, was that covering this bit of cosmology here is correct, because the Well of Mimir is such a central concept to fate, to the cycle of knowledge, of chaos, of so many things, because of how it actually relates to the cosmology. So the Well of Urd, which we discussed last time, is in the realm of Asgard, which is essentially by definition the a Garth or Guard in the Old Norse was essentially it's a garden, but the meaning was different. That's kind of the inside, the explored territory, that which is inside the civilization, and it's the garden of the Aesir. So the greatest gods, the highest figures here, and this well comes out in Asgard. So it comes out in explored territory. Mimir's well, by contrast, comes out in Jotunheim, the land of the giants, which essentially, by definition, again, we take a light leap there. By definition, though, essentially, it's unexplored territory. It's that which lies outside that which is being explored. For lack of a better term, it's the unknown. It's where chaos reigns. It's where giants have their home. Giants being these beings of chaos, these beings that are outside the tribe, outside civilization. And so Mimir's well represents that portal to chaos and to fate, which lies outside. And Mimir's well, we've hit Mimir's well, Urd's well, and then there's Fergelmir. Fergelmir is essentially all within Niflheim, this underworld here, and that's really at the base of the tree, the base of the world. And the only reason I bring that up here is that is essentially the realm of pure chaos. So there's explored territory, there's unexplored territory, but essentially all around the two is this great chaos, this both potential for creation and potential for destruction. And so what is mind-boggling to me is that they got this delineation of three things, of three places, exactly right. They have one inside of explored territory, which is your connection to the things you have control over, the things that you have within your own territory, right? And then there's this this other in unexplored territory, which is the connection to things where you are striking out into the unknown to potentially, slay the dragon and get the gold, or kill the giants and fend off the destruction of civilization for a little while longer. But then there's even further than that. There's a source of fate and chaos that lies under all of this that is outside of the realms of explored versus unexplored territory. And that's something even too dark for Odin to put his eye into there.
For sure.
But he puts his eye into unexplored territory, not explored territory, because what's the point of leaving your eye where you've already covered that, right? Where you already know what everything is. He's putting his eye exactly where he should, which is unexplored territory. The chaos that is not necessarily, there's a distinction, I think. There's a distinction, an important distinction between unexplored territory and pure pre-cosmogonic chaos, which still sort of surrounds everything in this archetypal view. And it's important to note the difference there, because it would be almost impossible to, have one eye on that chaos which consumes everything, but the eye on unexplored territory is a bit different.
And I wonder if that third well with the with like that really like raging chaos is almost like malice. Like when there's chaos, which is like with Jotuns, the giants. There are some giants who actually marry into the gods and become gods themselves and are happy, and it's fine. And then there are other gods they play games with and drink mead with, but there are giants that they fight and kill, and they're all sort of in the same, they're outside the tribe, but it's a chaos that has potential and it can go either way. But then this other chaos, this one that Odin didn't put his eye in the well that springs up. I wonder if that's almost like evil, where people purposefully, it's sort of that, the idea of purposefully hurting people, and that it's not impossible to look at how, to look at people like thinking of ways to hurt you, but a lot of the time, and in the way that these places are described, where this well is, it is kind of this, like, it's very hard to figure out how people are going to purposefully hurt you until they do, and you're like, wow, I couldn't have figured that out, like, on my own in a million years, like that. And it's harder to deal with because it's so hostile. Like, the unexplored is hostile on its own, but purposefully hostile and hurtful, that's like, okay, this is serious, and how do you deal with that?
There's people who get just destroyed by one encounter with that sort of malice, right?
For sure.
And the way it comes up is so unimaginable to some people. It's the bubbling up of this, of a bitterness, of a jealousy, of things that are hard for, your average person really to wrap their head around, because they would never consider it. But maybe what's important to understand, though, is it could happen to anyone, but you have to put yourself there. And so
for sure,
it's also right that I don't think it would be good if Odin put himself there, but he puts himself where he has potential,
where there's potential, and not just because I think too, like, if you do put yourself in that, and you know what, we actually see that with occupations that do deal with evil, like an actual evil, where people, not just the chaos that can go either way or is chaotic, but when they're faced with real evil, that affects them. Like soldiers with PTSD, a lot of that is evil that they have faced, and sometimes evil that they've had to do in order to survive or protect other people that they didn't think they were capable of.
Yeah,
that is. So it's a real thing, and they were able to see that there's sort of there's what we know, what we don't know, and then stuff that is just like awful.
Maybe it speaks to what it's worth to voluntarily put yourself into, because I mean, using soldiers as an example, right? They're voluntarily putting themselves in harm's way. Certainly a concept of the unknown, but it's not like they are going out to do these evil things.
No, exactly.
Which book is it that details the gangs that sort of cropped up in Nazi Germany? Is that Viktor Frankl? I think that's Frankl.
Is that Frankl? Or is that Ordinary Men?
Ordinary Men. I think you're right. That's Ordinary Men. But I will have to make a note of the author somewhere here.
We'll put it in the description once we figure it out.
That's right. But yeah, it details how it's really the key concept of why ordinary policemen in Germany were willing to go to the evil lengths that Nazi Germany obviously went to, was because a lot of them were not willing to let their buddy go do it on their own. They all had the option of not doing these terrible things, but they weren't going to let their buddy do it on their own, and they sort of all had that attitude, and they ended up doing these monstrous evil things. And that's an oversimplification and an understatement of how it just went from ordinary people to just terrible things. And they're not putting themselves in that situation with the intention of becoming evil. They're just doing it because it's another step and another step and another step.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think another point here is that if you find someone who has intentionally put themselves into that malice, that evil, that chaos, run the hell away. I think that's
absolutely run away. There's I think we're going to see in the next story, essentially the next main story, a good example of that, I think. So I don't think we've actually even tapped out this stanza, but we've sort of already hit quite a lot of definitely
heavy stuff already. Do you have anything else to add?
I would like to mention the line about Mimir being able to drink every morning from these waters. So Mimir is immersed in this well and immersed in these waters. And I think part of it is that, and when they were listening to the story, they would have known Mimir doesn't have a body. He doesn't have to exist in the physical world. He's just ahead, so he can really go deep into the chaos, into the unknown, so that because he doesn't have to worry about actually all the normal stuff we have to do, like eating and sleeping and that kind of stuff. He doesn't have to worry about that. So there is a danger in always being focused on this unknown and this chaos. That's why Odin only puts one eye in, because he still has to, be the All-Father and, sort of run things. And actually, I was going to point out too, this is a good example of why, or of how sort of the example of a good leader or even like a well-developed person is that they have one eye on the chaos, but only one, because they need the anchor in firm reality rather than sort of the dark, supernatural, unconscious reality. But it is something to strive for, to be able to have one eye in both.
Yeah, maybe another thing that gets me thinking about is maybe Mimir is able to immerse himself, as you said, because he can't do anything about it.
For sure.
He can't have any action on the world. With the knowledge he has, he can't do anything about it. But Odin can. And so, I mean, this imagery, his eye drowning, to me that just says it's overwhelming. What he's seeing is overwhelming, in the sense that it's a lot to deal with, it's a lot to handle, because he knows he has that responsibility to do something about it, because he knows. I think it's something like that. If you get knowledge of something that's going to happen, or something in your life that is amiss or out of place, or even like you're just venturing into the unknown somehow, you have a responsibility to follow that through. I think that's true, and I think that's what this says here. Because he is able to do something about it, everything he's hearing about and he's seeing it's so much information, wisdom, knowledge, whatever word you want for it.
I would agree. I think that's a great insight into it.
Oh, and I hadn't thought of it that way either with Mimir, so that's a good one too. I will point out that I think one of my favorite lines in here, regardless of the translation, Odin, I know where you hid your eye. I love that line. It's a great line. I think it's the deepest, darkest mystery. One of two, essentially. We'll get into the other one.
Yeah,
real quick. But the deepest mysteries there is like, where did you put your eye in it? And I think that's almost an answer. An answer is you put your eye in the unknown, in chaos. That is maybe not the answer, but that is a big part of how you transcend and how you deal with the world around you, and how you become greater than the unbearable present. How you defeat that, how you defeat the unbearable present is you have this goal of in the unknown and you set your eye on it, and it's something like that. And this line here, I'll see if I have it in Larrington. It's the same deal. I know all about it, Odin, where you hid your eye. Yeah, so it's the same.
For sure.
It's the same deal. I love that line.
It's a great line.